I'm just going to run through where I think we're at based off of the comments, and maybe it will help guide your discussion in terms of providing feedback or talk about how you guys want to handle it going forward. So I think one of the first conversations you should probably have is this single question versus pyramid question. We've talked about there's a baseline need, which is in that $9.1, $9.2 million range, which I'll run through these various scenarios, and we can run through it all and then come back to this. But there's the menu option, and Dave, I'll provide you guys the piece of paper here. There's the menu option was, do you want to fund this or do you want to fund that? There's the pyramid option, do you want to fund this, and do you want to fund this plus these other things? Or there's the single override question. I've drafted an example of the single override question based off of some of the feedback we've heard. And you could even take this and add a pyramid if you wanted to, but this is probably the cleanest, most appropriate way to phrase the single override question. I can run through the scenarios and then come back to this, but even if you just decided it's going to be a single question, that might be helpful for everyone going forward. I'm not going to go through 50 slides. I'm actually kind of tired of hearing myself talk at this point. When we talk about level service, these are the positions on the town side, and some of the adjustments that we're trying to make up in FY26. So if it fails, these are the types of things that are going. These are the types of things the school department is considering. This is a continuation of some of the items that are being considered at the school department. This is the number that was presented. There is still some collective bargaining considerations, which we've tried to add some of that into this level service number that we've been floating around. We have ticked it up a little bit to 9.2 based off of even some information we've learned in the last 48 hours regarding property insurance and Northeast Metro Tech charges. So we've always talked about this number. So hopefully this type of number is not a surprise on the what I've been calling the level service piece. So does anyone have any questions about just this, where we are, how we got to this number? I think you guys have seen it and heard it for the nth time.
We've lived it.
Yep. At the end of the last engagement session, the group that was present started inserting this piece of the conversation into the dialogue, which was these were proposed cuts from previous years that were going to continue to not be funded. I reached out to the superintendent. We think this amounts to about $2.5 million in the first year. I've inserted this red diagonal bar across because, you know, the school committee still needs the flexibility of maybe these are the things that were cut in the past, but maybe they're not the priority when you're going into the next fiscal year. There's a number of competing priorities and the environment's changed. But if there is a sense in the community or amongst the select board that there needs to be an additional amount of money to help restore some of these items / grow the school department additionally above the level service amount, this is an estimate that we've put forward with the understanding that we don't want to be the ones to say we're going to be adding point FTE for any of these particular uses. So I just wanted to use it as an example. These are the items that we've gone through several times in terms of police department requests, public works department requests, fire department requests. So the next slide is a summation of the full, I don't want to say it's full because it's a summation of the things that we've talked about in the most recent public engagement sessions and compiling all those together. And adding some growth factors. So if we added the town ads, I don't know why this red looks so bad on this screen, but the town ads plus the school ads changes the number to 14.6 million. And it shouldn't necessarily be a surprise because we've said in the public engagement sessions that the town ads in total would be around 2 million. Now we're seeing the school ads just from that one slide being an additional 2.5 million, and that is leading to 14.6 million. Again, there are other needs. It could go even higher. I'm just trying to map through the conversations we've had. What I'm trying to show on this slide is you could not fully fund all of those requests. You could choose a round number like $1 million for the town in the first year or $2 million for the schools in the first year. And in that example, it would lead to 13.1 million if you funded $1 million of the town asks and $2 million of the school asks. And really the options start becoming infinite once we go beyond the 14 million. So that's just how I've digested the previous rounds of meetings. I don't know how you've digested them. We haven't really talked about it. So again, just as a reminder, 10 million is around $1,200. 12.5 million is around $1,400, and 15 is around $1,700 on an average single-family home. We just showed this for those who are trying to calculate what the value of their house might be. You would just multiply it by how many X hundreds of thousands of dollars your home is assessed at in the assessor's office, not market value or what Zillow says. The deadline's February 28th, just as a reminder, for notifying the clerk. But that is just how I've kind of digested it, and I'm willing to take any feedback or direction.
Okay. Ask a question?
Sure can.
Oh, man. So this is FY24, so you have to just remember we're sitting in FY25. On this one for 24, we were around 7,500. I can tell you that some of these towns are talking about overrides or have already. So like Melrose is already talking about an override. North Reading just went and asked for a $10 million override. You have us. Winthrop is also in the middle of an override conversation. So this slide next year could be fundamentally different. And I have to double check. Danvers might start having that conversation soon as well. But then you have North Reading for single family at 10,000, Reading single family at 10,000, Belmont at 17. So we're at 7,500 on this slide. And I think, John, you had previously talked about the tax rates, both residential and commercial. Stoneham is at around, in fiscal year 23, I should just point out, it was 1110 for residential, 21 for commercial. Reading was 1259 residential, 13 for commercial. Wakefield was 1173 residential, 22 for commercial. So, for similar communities, we're in those types of ranges, but they're also dealing with the same issues we're dealing with.
Yeah, I mean, I would just add to that the, on that slide, Wilmington is like the closest to us, and they're like $300 more in their taxes than we are. And I don't want to compare us to other towns. But Stoneham has never passed an override. And a lot of those towns have. So,
I just couldn't tell where the select board was going, so I couldn't run every single scenario, but 12 and a half was going to be around $1,400, almost $1,500, and 15 is around $1,700 change.